English is a language that most of us have come to understand as a language we speak in, the language that we write in, and it's a class that a lot of us take even at this point in college. But a lot of us are no longer really invested in the study of English as a realm of college classes that we take. I myself am an English major, and I'm very interested in the way that English as a study has evolved over time. Because the truth is that over time, English studies at the university level have shifted significantly. Literature is often influenced by new writers and new ideas, but the shift from the study of rhetoric to the study of the aesthetic is a marked difference in English study that really helped to broaden the scope of what we understand today in our college classes. Rhetoric is the study of arguments and persuasive writing, and in the beginning, English studies were primarily centered around the study of rhetoric. English was initially to help students better understand and better write and create rhetoric. James Berlin, in his book, looks at how political prose and the prose that resulted from political speech led English studies to focus on rhetoric. He says that while rhetoric and poetry have always been the two major realms of English study, poetry was initially a subcategory of rhetoric. The appreciation of literature is what helped us to create the study of rhetoric, and it's what helped rhetoric become one of the foundations of English study. History, theology, and the classics, when combined with English study, helped to broaden it from not just rhetoric, but to more fields. Students initially just looked at persuasion and the creation of arguments, but now we understand that the value of literature is important, but the criticism of literature is also important. It was this shift that led us to study the aesthetic elements of English language as well. Recently, English studies have branched into several fields. Students now appreciate several types of prose in their study of the language. Donald Stewart, in an article about the English major and what it should strive to be, explores the four fields of contemporary English study. He defines them to be literature, creative writing, composition and rhetoric, and linguistics. These studies are no longer centered around rhetoric and the creation of persuasive arguments, but around new areas of the English field. We now look at poetry, composition, and linguistics even. English is studied for more than its communicative properties. It's also the way that we are able to measure writers' abilities. Writing changes constantly, and we see that throughout the scope of literature. But as writing changes, the mediums through which prose is encountered change as well. There are new conventions constantly. We see the short story, the vignette, we see different types of poetry. And as we encounter these new types of prose, we have to aesthetically evaluate the literature that we see. Rhetoric teaches important skills, and that's true, and that's why English has these foundations in rhetoric, but poetry is equally important. And the evaluation, the aesthetic evaluation of poetry is really what English has quite branched into. So yes, over time, English as a field of study at the university level has shifted and has broadened. It was initially based in rhetoric, and trends in education and ideology have led it to be more of a study of the aesthetic. As we said, it branched from the appreciation of literature to the criticism of literature, which is really a key distinction that we make as we look at the scope of English as a major at the university level. So yes, English is the language that we speak, it's the language that we write in, it's the language that we read in, and it's even a course requirement for a lot of us to graduate from college. But it's far more valuable than just its transactional linguistic value. English studies have come very far from rhetoric to the appreciation of the aesthetic, and they should be interesting to watch and see how far they go in the future. Thank you.